today we're gonna do another story time. This time I'm gonna tell you about a time when I was in Korea and we had a really creepy cab driver, you guys. So let's just get into it. If you're not familiar with Korea, then I'll tell you a little bit about like their transportation system. And usually most Koreans, they either ride the subway or they will take the bus or they have their own cars. Some of them may take cabs, but I think the typical transportation is bus or subway. A lot of foreigners, on the other hand, they may take taxi as well or use those other three modes of transportation. And because Korea doesn't really have like Uber, it's like taxi, like, you know, local Korean taxi services or something called Kakao Taxi, which is like foreigner friendly app that I highly recommend. It lets you know how much it costs to get from point A to point B. Lets you track like where your taxi is. Super helpful. Me and my friend, we were in Korea last summer. We used taxi occasionally when we were going to certain places. We also went in July, and it was super hot. So there was sometimes we did not want to walk to the subway or the bus station. So we're like, we're gonna take a taxi. So let me tell you the story. I believe we had gone to Hongdae, me and my friend, and this was like in the evening, probably around like 10 p.m. or so. Occasionally we would take the taxi when we would go to Hongdae, because typically when you leave Hongdae as well, it's super early in the morning and like the subway isn't running. So it's just more convenient to take a taxi. And we had rode and used Kakao Taxi several times before this. Always had a really good experience. The drivers were nice. Sometimes they were curious and asked us questions. But for whatever reason, this night, it was just super weird. It was just super weird. And it started off normal. Yeah, it started off normal. We had gotten the taxi. I don't remember why, but like my friend sat in the front seat with the taxi driver and I sat in the back seat. I think I was just always so used to sitting in the back seat, like back at home when I took like Ubers and Lyfts and stuff, but I don't know why she sat in the front, but there was plenty of room in the back with me. And we got in the car, we got in the taxi, and it was like an older gentleman, which usually majority of the taxi drivers will be like ajushis, like older men. And he was super friendly, asking us like the typical questions that normal like taxi drivers have been asking us, like, oh, where are you from? How long are you staying here? When did you get here? The typical stuff. And, you know, I was like happy to like answer that. I'm always happy to answer those questions because they're just curious. And then it got weird when he started asking, I feel like more like personally intrusive questions. And so he started asking like, oh, where are you staying? Which obviously he would have known where we were staying because he was dropping us off. But we actually, coincidentally, that day when we were getting picked up, we had put our drop-off address at a GS25, which is like a convenience store. We had put it as the GS25 as our drop-off address. Because where we were staying, like our Airbnb was a little bit more difficult to find. So we just dropped it off at the GS25, which was like a 2-minute walk from where we were staying. So we were telling him about like the neighborhood that like we were staying in, which again, I didn't think really anything of it at that time, until he started asking like more invasive questions like, oh, do you have neighbors? Do you live alone? And to me, that was kind of weird. That's where like a red flag went off in my mind. Like, why is he asking if we have neighbors and if we live alone? Like, I had done some research before I'd gone to Korea, and I'm sure you probably have seen some of those videos where they tell you like, oh, if a guy asks you this or this, like, don't answer, or that's a red flag. And one of them was like them asking if you lived alone. So it definitely like red flag went off in my mind, but like I feel like my friend who was sitting in the front, she wasn't really thinking anything of it. She was kind of just like, oh, like he's just curious. And I was kind of trying to like nudge her a little bit, like not to answer these questions, but she couldn't really see me because she was in the front seat and I didn't want to make things obvious. So I was like, crap. But so she started like answering the questions and I was like, oh no, like what are we gonna do? This guy's being weird. And so he was like asking us like how old we were. He was like in his 40s, like mid 40s, I want to say. And my friend was being funny. This was funny. She was like, oh, do you have a son? Like, you know, because she was like, I'm not checking for you. I don't know if you got a son, you know? So she's like, oh, do you have a son? Like, how old is he? And I can't remember exactly. My memory's a little foggy at this part, but I think he did have a son. But his son like wasn't single or something. Because my friend had also asked like, oh, is your son single? And or maybe he didn't have a son. Maybe this was like because we've had several conversations with like older adults about whether or not they had kids. Okay, my friend was trying to find a boyfriend. Okay, joking, but maybe he didn't have a son at this time. This wasn't the guy that had the son, but there was another. I don't know the story time about a restaurant owner who had a son and like she was like low key like telling us about her son. But anyway, sorry. Back to the story. The cab driver didn't have a son. And so yeah, he was telling us like, oh, like I'm 45, like I'm single. And I'm just like, why is he telling us this? We did not ask you if you were single. So I just felt like it was really, really weird. I felt like he had some ulterior motives. And so yeah, he was like asking us like, oh, do you guys have boyfriends? Are you guys single? And I just felt very like uncomfortable and weird about it. Thankfully, our drive was not that long. So when I saw the GS25, I was like, let's get out, you know? So we got out and we went inside the store because I didn't want to like show them where we lived. Like I didn't want to like walk to where we were staying. So I just told my friend, I was like, hey, like let's go inside the store and wait for the cab driver to leave. And so we went in the store and I saw the cab driver like kind of like go around the corner and like wait, which freaked me out because like it's like a whole neighborhood like where we're in, so he should have went the other way, like past the store to like get out. Like that was the only way out back into the street, but he didn't. He went like around he went to the right around the corner, kind of like towards where we lived. And there's no way out that way. And I kind of just like waited for like a good 5 minutes and I didn't see him leave. That's what freaked me out. So I kind of just like walked around the store for a little bit until I felt comfortable, and then we finally saw him leave. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes after we went into the store. So that really freaked me out. That really gave me the creeps. My poor friend, I don't even think she understood like what was happening until like I told her when we got in the store, like he was asking these really weird questions, like if we were single and where we lived and if we had neighbors, like that. I don't know, those are the questions I feel like you don't ask people, like especially people like you don't know. And so she was like low-key freaking out too, like once I kind of like brought it to her attention. And so we definitely like learned our lesson, but like after that we had several other cab drivers who were completely normal, super nice. But yeah, it was just that one situation that was like super weird. So if you're ever in a situation like that where a man is like asking you those questions, like either lie or just kind of like laugh it off, because they're obviously like asking for a certain reason. So definitely be careful out there, girls. Thank you for listening to my story time. If you want more Korea story times, definitely let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.